killings. Some, notice some, protested. There was very remarkably little protest. Ostensibly, Hitler ended the T4 program on August 24th, 1941 in response to those pressures. However, the killings of useless eaters continued at the will of physicians, so they basically continued at free will. Ultimately, T4 personnel were sent to concentration camps between 1941 and 1945 so they could continue their work there. They would weed out those who were too ill to work. That program was known as part of program 14F13. At least 20,000 people died under that program. So continuing to murder the mentally and physically disabled. In addition, mental patients in occupied territories were shot or gassed by the thousands. Overall, it's estimated that between 200 and 250,000 mentally and physically handicapped people died between 1939 and 1945 under the T4 and other programs. Those individuals were ultimately a pilot test for Hitler's final solution. So today, we remember that each one of those numbers was a person, and each one of those people had a name. They had a life. They were people like Emmy, a 16-year-old housemaid who was diagnosed as schizophrenic. She was a victim of both sterilization and euthanasia. Emmy was first sterilized and then later sent to a euthanasia center where she was killed with an overdose of tranquilizers on December 7th, 1942. So don't forget that today we honor the memories and the lives of people like Emmy.
Next, we will hear from Dr. Eileen Curley-Talon. Dr. Curley-Talon is the John Monroe Johnson Holliday Professor of Political Science at Francis Marion. And today she will discuss the strategy and tactics the Nazis used to gain power in Germany, as well as the political parties they targeted in their pursuit of power.
Good afternoon. I'm very pleased to see so many students here. It is very important that we know the history of Nazi Germany and the Holocaust so that it will never happen again. Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. The Nazis' rise to power, I want to start with the joining of a political party by Hitler in 1919. After World War I, quite a few extremist political parties were formed in Germany, and these parties were opposed to the political system established in Germany after the war to replace the German Empire. It was a representative democracy. The party that Hitler joined in 1919 was the German Workers' Party. In 1920, the party's name was changed to the National Socialist German Workers' Party, better known as the Nazi Party. By 1921, Hitler was the undisputed leader of this party and ruled over it as a dictator. The first strategy that Hitler, as leader of this party, decided to utilize to gain control of Germany was a strategy based on a violent, forceful overthrow of the existing system. In 1923, in November, Hitler and the Nazis attempted what has become known in history as the Beer Hall Putsch. Putsch is a German word, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing, which basically means a coup d'etat. A coup is a violent overthrow of an existing system by illegal means. They wanted to overthrow the system and take control. The Beer Hall Putsch is called that because they met in a beer hall and then marched through the streets of Munich, which was the capital of Bavaria, one of the German states, in an attempt to overthrow the Bavarian government. The troops of the German army were loyal to the government and opened fire on the marchers, killing 16 Nazis, and subsequently Hitler and several of the other leaders were arrested. In March of 1924, Hitler was tried for treason, found guilty, and sentenced to 5 years in prison. He served less than 1 year and was released from prison in December of 1924. During that prison sentence of less than 1 year, he wrote Mein Kampf. In Mein Kampf, he made it very clear that the peoples he hated most in all the world were communists and Jews. Now, after his stint in prison, Hitler resumed his leadership of the Nazi Party and came up with a new strategy to attain power. The new strategy was what is sometimes referred to as a system strategy. The German government was a representative democracy. The Nazi Party, in a representative democracy, could run candidates for office. And if it was able to win enough elections, the Nazi Party would gain control of the German government. So starting in 1924, the Nazi Party ran candidates for the national legislature in Germany. The national legislature was known as the Reichstag, and the building in which they met was also known as the Reichstag. By December of 1932, the Nazis had won enough seats in the Reichstag that they and one of their allied parties had almost 50% of the seats in the Reichstag. Because of that, Hitler was named Chancellor of Germany on January 30th, 1933. Just a note on the date. Saturday is January 30th, and that will be the 77th anniversary of the Nazi takeover of the German government. Today is January 27th, and today is the 65th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. So two very important anniversaries, today and Saturday. After Hitler was named Chancellor, he decided that his number of seats in the Reichstag, the German legislature, were not sufficient, because what he wanted was to have enough votes to pass a law that would in effect amend the Constitution of Germany, thus destroying the representative democratic government. So what he got, and I won't go through all the details, but what he got was the president of Germany to call for another Reichstag election on March 5th, 1933. A week before the election, the Reichstag building in Germany burnt to the ground. The person responsible was eventually found, and the Nazis claimed it was the Communist Party which was responsible for the burning of the Reichstag building. The Nazis claimed that the communists were doing this as their first step in a revolutionary overthrow of the German democratic system. He used this as an excuse to have 4,000 Communist Party members arrested. The Communist Party was banned. The Communist Party press was shut down 1 week before the election, which meant, of course, that their chances of winning as many seats as they might have was substantially reduced. The results of the, also part of this action, he got the president to issue a decree, an edict, which basically stripped Germans of all their constitutional rights. Now, the election was held on March 5th. Hitler and the Nazis and parties allied with them won a majority of seats, but it wasn't enough, because they needed a 2/3 vote in the Reichstag to change the Constitution. And here's the change they wanted. They wanted to change the Constitution to suspend Parliament, so Parliament would no longer operate for 4 years, and the executive, which was Hitler as Chancellor, would have a free hand to govern Germany without the approval of Parliament. They didn't have the 2/3 votes, but as usually happens in representative democracies, they made some deals with other political parties who actually believed the Nazis would keep their end of the bargain. One of the deals they made was with the Center Party, a moderate party. The Nazis promised the Center Party, vote for this constitutional change, and we will revoke the edict, which takes away German political and civil rights. The Center Party voted for the constitutional change. It passed by more than 2/3 of the votes, and of course the Nazis never revoked the edict. One last thing before I end. The two political parties targeted by the Nazis were the Communist Party, which Hitler had already told the world he hated as much as the Jews, and the Social Democratic Party of Germany, which was a socialist party. The first large numbers of people who were sent to concentration camps were Communist Party members and Social Democratic Party members, many of whom perished also in the Holocaust. Thank you.